Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Last time we saw Ghost Rider, one of them anyway, he was hunting the devil in an alternate universe before disappearing unceremoniously. Today, a different spirit of vengeance teams up with a hero from his own world to tackle a force that threatens to make him use public transportation. I'm taking issue with the Amazing Spider-Man / Ghost Rider Motorstorm, written by Rob Williams, with art by Lee Garbett, Alejandro Seacat, and Fabio Diaria. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover, by Roberto Delatorre and Matt Hollingsworth, does look really cool. I'm just not sure what scene is going on here. It kind of looks like the two are maybe fighting, with the way Ryder is whipping that chain and Spider appears to be dodging and or readying an attack. Maybe Parker was jaywalking and Ghosty is really aggressive about traffic laws. Then we have this logo. I'm not invested enough in the Ryder to care much about the design, and I don't have anything against the unique font or the bike chain outline, and even that skull engulfed in fire is a nice touch. But for some reason I find it a little weird. Maybe I'm just used to the 90s version, or it just feels very 2000s to me. Moving along, we begin with Spidey swinging through Manhattan, awaiting a villain attack, or the revelation that J. Jonah Jameson is really his dad, to start bumming him out, when he sees people running in terror out of a bar, with a demonic-looking bike parked nearby. This can only mean one thing. Russell Crowe is in town! He didn't start any fights or anything, he just told the other bar patrons about the plot for that Gladiator sequel that never happened. The bartender nervously asks an off-panel customer what he wants to drink. Human blood. Oh, it's not Russell Crowe. It's Tucker Carlson. It's actually the Ghost Rider, and kidding aside, he wants a whiskey neat, but does get aggressive about it. What's an ordinary Joe got to do to get a drink round here? Maybe not walk in with his skull on fire, then joking about wanting human blood. Just a thought. He notices Spidey in the doorway, and sick of drinking alone, he offers to buy him a drink. You're a Spider-Man, I'm a Ghost Rider. Kinda fits. How? Because you're both superpowered? Considered menaces to society? Shared your mantles with others? Are you both Capricorns? The webhead accepts, ordering milk, and the Rider cools off into Johnny Blaze, so the alcohol will actually affect him. He's celebrating that he no longer has anyone to call master, and is going to try ridding himself of the Ghost Rider once and for all. You know, the involvement of alcohol would explain a lot about that second Ghost Rider movie. He asks his wall-crawling drinking buddy, given the chance to have a normal life again without the pain associated with their kind of existence, would Spidey take it? He pauses a minute, possibly wondering if he should point out how he sold his marriage to a beautiful supermodel to the devil, and how he's maybe not the best guy to ask this question, when someone else in the bar interrupts them. Your bike screams. Yeah, I've been meaning to get the brakes looked at, and the oil changed, and to remove that demon foot impaled in the exhaust pipe. A guy who looks like he could really use some Visine says the Rider's bike is suffering in its age, but shall be renewed in blood, pain, shattered bone, and sin by the servicer. Is it just me, or are these new ads for Progressive Insurance getting weirder? The heroes head outside to check on the bike when they see a hulking figure in stitches, ring piercings, and noticeably, fire. Apparently the hog has not been used for its intended purpose. Fonzie impressions? Dang it, now I want a cut of the first Ghost Rider movie with Henry Winkler as Johnny Blaze, but playing it like his Happy Days character. Stop taunting me with things I'll never have! Other citizens with glowing eyes, perhaps meaning they're possessed by the servicer, point out the vehicle is supposed to collect souls for drop-off in hell, and the displeased demon Grease Monkey intends on rectifying this, so the bike can again feast on mortal pain. And as a chaser, mortal anxiety about public speaking. Before he can actually get his mitts on the ride, he gets a combo of webs and the Rider's chain, several times, to his face, as Blaze has gotten tired of some agent from heaven or hell forcing him into one line or another. Unfortunately, the brute grabs his chain and pulls him in more ways than one, as several hands pull the Ghost Rider into his torso, so he tasks Spider-Man with taking the bike far away, along with its mysterious power. The webhead does just that, riding the cycle through the streets with his spider sense appearing to activate. Probably because the tank is low. All that hellfire really eats into the bike's mileage. Though shaky at first, he does seem to get a good handle on it quickly, as he's able to interrupt a mugging, scare off the crooks, and return the wallet to its owner. Spidery spirit of vengeance coming through! The next morning, J. Jonah Jameson finds donuts burned into his lawn. But let's be honest, it could have been done by space Bigfoots who upload themselves doing it on YouTube, and he'd still find a way to blame it on Spider-Man. After cracking wise to himself about the rider needing to get a car, probably a convertible because Fire Skull, he goes on about how creepy it was seeing his fellow super get absorbed into a demon. And there seems to be a bit of a typo here, since it'd make more sense if it read it was the creepiest thing he'd seen since Doc Ock tried to woo Aunt May with octopus-based poetry. Anyway, the surfacer has appeared before him, Ghosty popping out long enough to remind Spidey not to let the guy near the bike. But before he can get much further, the demon's own chains snag the rear tire, and I guess in between panels, the webhead is turned around as he's now facing the villain. That kind of limits my running away options. Have you tried shouting, "Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there"? I mean, you can't go with farmer's insurance. J.K. Simmons would make things awkward. This might be a possible error. Now the servicer's dialogue bubble has gone from red text on white to the writer's white text on black. Not a big deal, but just kind of weird. Parker decides to just drive right at the demon at high speed, expecting him to release the bike and jump out of the way at the last second. Except those chains used to stop it are gone, and there's no indication that he's actively restraining it. Unless those unearthly tethers turned invisible, it seems like maybe Pete could have at least attempted going into reverse or something, some kind of stall. Instead, the bike makes contact, Ghost Rider is spat out, Manhattan saved, Ghostbusters reference, all's good, except maybe not, as we now see why Blaze didn't want their foe getting the bike. The Servicer has merged with it, turning it into a giant, even more demonic-looking cycle. And that nose ring is just plain tacky. No offense, but I'm never going for a drink with you again. Mostly the whole Repo Man from Hell thing, but also, I'm pretty sure that was skim milk. The fused entity now starts looking to chomp some human souls, like he was Pac-Man and the rider's cycle was a power pellet. We get some of Blaze's narration, reminding us that he wants a normal life, as well as the webhead's plan to drop him on the bike to try and regain control, only for him to immediately get bucked off and sent crashing through a wall. It's the mechanical bull incident in that Utah bar all over again. Spidey makes time to snark about how an actual ghost would have phased through the building, and Johnny should change his misleading name to Skull Rider, and how he hasn't really got much brand recognition. Well, now you've gone and made Nicolas Cage cry. I hope you're happy. I find it a little odd that the writer retorts, "Now you think of this?" Which almost seems like he's referring to the name thing, but I guess he could be referring more to the situation that Spidey's making light of it all, though he does dryly mention he'll keep it in mind, because I don't think he's referring to the crack about phasing through the wall. Maybe we're supposed to read the writer's dialogue first, then Spidey's saying damaging the wall just occurred to him, then the stuff about changing his name. Just between the dialogue and the placement of the bubbles, it just seems a little confusing. Moving on, Servicer Cycle is headed up a skyscraper. I'm not sure which one, only that it's not Empire State, given more Spidey snark. With Blaze figuring that's the worst spot for a demon that mentioned it wants to feast on mortal pain of the island's many souls. Surfacer begins doing just that, regaining more of his humanoid form as several people are seen writhing in agony, and Johnny reiterates that he's done with this life, dealing with evil nonsense about damnation and power. Spidey manages to get them to the roof as he starts succumbing to the demon's attack, saying that this is outside his scope of fighting goblins and dumpy nerds. To answer the earlier question about if he'd trade this life for a normal one, he says, ultimately, no. He saved too many lives as the wall crawler to give that all up. Besides, at this point, what do you have that you could even sell to Mephisto to get that life? Your Pog collection? Skeletor Enflambe gets it, and realizes that this is his curse to deal with. He approaches the Servicer, now kind of a motorcycle minotaur. Motortor? Minicycle? Anyway, he says that whether he built the bike or intended it to run down souls like roadkill, it still belongs to the Ghost Rider, and he wants it back. His foe appears to rev up for a charge, but Blaze manages to separate the demon from his wheels by hitting him real hard with his chain handle. feels just a tad itsy-bitsy, slightly very anticlimactic. Whether he likes it or not, Johnny decides the roads the bike will travel, and despite the servicers saying both of them belong to hell and they're destined to end the world, Ryder says that the bike has decided it doesn't want the demon's services, so he has no reason to exist. I don't know, he could find another calling, get another job. He works in hell, so either telemarketing scammer or guy who makes intentionally and obnoxiously misinformed memes that some people make their whole personality. He stomps the enemy's head in, and the servicer burns away into a mist, presumably back to the Lake of Fire, where Blaze tells him to spread the word that he and his motorcycle no longer belong to paradise or perdition. And the comic ends on Spidey saying it's great that he's retiring, by the sound of it, but asks if he could get a lift.
That's all, folks.
That was The Amazing Spider-Man / Ghost Rider, and overall, it was a fun little story. This originally appeared in 3 short backups across Amazing Spidey 658 through 660, sometime after I dropped that title. You can pretty easily tell where each part ends and the next begins, and it would explain why some dialogue seems repeated despite the whole thing amounting to a standard single issue, 24 pages. Although, maybe if it had been a proper one-shot with more pages to work with, it could have fixed a few of the problems it has, namely the Servicer's ultimate defeat. I guess we're supposed to assume that the demon's ability to control the bike was related to Blaze's desire to no longer be the Ghost Rider, and when he declared his committal to this identity, it gave him an edge. Otherwise, it just looked like the bad guy was defeated with a move that could have been done earlier in the story. Had we gotten more on that connection between the rider and his ride, maybe some panels of him quietly realizing this desire for a normal life enabled or at least aided Servicer to possess it, perhaps the villain's defeat wouldn't feel quite so convenient and built upon Spidey's answer to his question. Good thing Blaze asked him about giving up his powers instead of whether or not he was into electric swing music. The webhead, for the most part, was written well, mostly funny, though a couple references may feel dated, and there were times he'd just go on, to a point bordering on obnoxious. That aside, he felt pretty much in character from my perspective. Maybe some of his spoken dialogue could have been internal, or captions, since otherwise he's just talking to himself, but that's hardly unheard of in this medium. And were those people with the red smoky eyeballs actually possessed by Servicer? If he could do that, you'd think he'd, have them attack or restrain our heroes so he could take the bike more easily. Or not announce what he was doing before he did it if he was so intent on using it for its intended purpose. His hesitation in speechifying through proxies would have made more sense if he'd bothered to give Blaze an ultimatum before going for the hog to go back to harvesting souls for hell and all, but he still seemed like a good villain for Ghosty. Art was really good, nice flame effects, didn't notice any technical problems or goofs, so I can't say anything bad about it. Motorstorm had untapped potential that I think more pages could have expanded upon, but the story we got was still enjoyable, even for someone like me that's largely unfamiliar with Ghost Rider's history and lore. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.